Hey everyone, this is Miss Stevens. I wanted to provide some additional examples to you guys for this IXL assignment with um, lines of best fit and finding the slopes and the intercepts and then writing the slope intercept of the best fit line. Okay, so it's important to remember that slope intercept form is y equals mx plus b. Okay, so right up here at the top, I have this written out for you, y equals mx plus b, where the m of this line is your slope, or it's the movement of that line. And then the b is going to be your y-intercept, or where that line is going to cross the y-axis or the beginning of that line. Okay. Now, looking at this example, this is an example that's right from IXL. Okay, so in this case, they have the trend line drawn for you, and then it's important to look at, they've got all these points here where we can see we have the blue points. These are from the scatter plot, okay? And then the yellow points are the two points that they have selected as the ordered pairs on this trend line. These yellow points are going to be very important when you go to find the y-intercept of this line. So let's take a look at how to find the slope. Okay, so there's two different options, and right here I have this laid out for you. The slope is going to be equal to the rise over the run. Okay, so if we are looking at this from this first ordered pair and we count, we would say this is actually going to be the fall. So I'm going to just write this. It's either the rise or the fall of the line. So from this first point, we're going to count. We're going to go down 1, 2, 3, 4 places, and we're going to stop right here. The reason why we stop right here is this is level with that other ordered pair that we have chosen on this trend line. So we're going to say that the fall is -4, and then the run, we're going to start from this point here, and we're going to count over to that other point. Okay, 1, 2 places. And that's going to give us our run. And keep in mind, we just finished the unit on the Pythagorean theorem. Once we have drawn this fall and this run, we actually are looking at a right triangle. So that's something fun just to keep in mind from the last unit we talked about. Okay, so when we have this, we've got -4 because that's our fall, and then our run is 2. And when we reduce this, we would say that -4 divided by 2 is going to give us -2. This is going to be the slope of our line. Okay, so the slope of our line will be -2. Now, this is where we're going to get into a little bit more of a challenging part of this assignment. Okay, we found the slope, but we still have to figure out what the y-intercept of this line is going to be. When we look at this, we do not know the y-intercept from looking at this graph, but we can use these yellow ordered pairs that they have picked out for us on the trend line. We can use these ordered pairs to help us solve for B. And there's a certain amount of steps that can be taken to figure this out, okay? So the first step, and I'm going to break this down for you, the first step is going to be to write out the equation in slope intercept form. So down here we've got y is equal to -2x plus b. The reason why we can plug this in is because we were able to find the slope of this line, and now we're just left with finding the b, okay, or the y-intercept. So once we write out this equation, we can have a better idea of what we're looking at. The second step of this is to pick out an ordered pair. It says one of the blue points, but actually in this case, one of the yellow points. So I'm just going to change this. One of the yellow points can be used. Okay, so we can say we have, in this case, I picked out this yellow point. Okay, be careful though, do not pick out one of these points of the scatter plot. It has to be on the trend line. Okay, we're trying to find the slope intercept form of the trend line. So this point down here is not on the trend line. So I'm going to pick this point. You can also pick this other yellow point as well. You do not have to pick this one, but either way, you're going to get the same answer. Okay. So we picked out this one. And I'm going to write this as an ordered pair. So down here, we're going to start at X and we're going over to 6. Okay, so that's going to be my X. And then we're going up to 5, which is going to be my Y. So the way we would write this ordered pair is down here as 6 and then 5. Okay, so this is step number 2. Now we're going to get into step number 3. Okay, step number 3 is going to be where we're going to start solving for what B is going to be. And how we solve is we're going to plug that ordered pair that we picked out from the graph, from the line, and we're going to plug it into the equation. Okay, so in this case, we have, and remember, this is also with the assignment from what the first assignment we did for second semester. Is XY a solution to the system of equations? We learned that we can actually take this ordered pair and we can plug it in for the variables. So we can say that this first number 6 is our X and this second number of 5 is our Y. And so when we go to plug this into the equation, we're going to plug these numbers in for our Y and in for our X. Okay. So down here, we would say that 5 is equal to -2 times 6 plus B. Okay. We solve this because 5 is our Y. That's where we get 5 is equal to, and then -2 times 6 because it was -2 times X. Okay. And then our last step of solving for B is going to be to just solve what we have set up. Okay. So in this case, we've got 5 is equal to -2 times 6 plus B. We're going to solve -2 times 6 is equal to -12 right here. Okay, so now we have this equation, 5 is equal to -12 plus B. And we have a one-step equation, so we have to do the inverse to get this variable of B by itself. And how we do that is we have a -12, so we're going to add 12 to both sides. And that's going to be -12 plus 12 is going to cancel here. And then 5 plus 12 is going to give us 17. So then we would say 17 is equal to B. Even though it's written backwards, it's still showing us that B is equal to 17. So now that we have all of the parts of this graph, of this trend line, we're going to go back in and we're going to plug in these numbers and we're going to plug it into the slope-intercept formula, or slope-intercept form, and that's going to give us our final answer. So we know that our slope is -2. We know that our y-intercept, or our B, is 17. So we're going to plug in -2 for M and then 17, positive 17 for B, and we would get a final answer of y is equal to -2x plus 17. And this is exactly how you're going to write it into IXL as well. Okay, you're going to write it as y is equal to -2x plus 17. Go ahead and look at one more example of this. This is going to be a little bit more of a trickier example, dealing with a lot of fractions, but it is still, solved the same way with the same steps. Okay, so in this case, we have the orange points on this graph are the scatter plot points. And then we have these two blue points that are on the trend line. These are going to come into play when we get into solving for B. The first thing we can do is we can solve for our slope. And I'm going to give you just a minute just to kind of look at this and see if you can't figure out what the slope is. Remember, the slope is going to be your rise or your fall over your run. And you want to pick out the point that's closest to the y-axis. So we would start with this point here and we would move to this point here. So take a minute and just see if you can figure out what the slope is. All right. So now we're going to look at the slope. We're going to say that we're counting from this place, this first point here. So we're counting up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And we're going to stop here because we want to be level with the other points. Okay. Then we're going to keep going. From this point, we know that our rise is 7. We're going to go over 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 to get to that other point. So our run is going to be 5. Okay, that means that our slope in this case is 7/5. And I encourage you to leave it as a fraction because when it comes to slope, it is easier to read as a fraction because it's clearly telling you that the rise is 7, the run is 5. But as a decimal, it's not going to tell you that clear rise or fall and the run. Okay, so it's okay to leave it as a fraction when we're talking about slope. Um, uh, and now we're going to look at solving for our y-intercept or our b. Okay. Again, with this one, we do not know the y-intercept, okay, of this. Just by looking at this graph, we don't know the y-intercept. We're only looking at quadrant 1 of this coordinate plane, and it stops at the x-axis of +2, okay? But we can still figure out what the y-intercept is by plugging in one of these ordered pairs to solve for b. We're going to follow the same steps that we just did. So if you want to go ahead and practice and try it, I encourage you to try it on your own. And then that way you can kind of check your answer along with us as we're going through it. You could go ahead and just pause this video. And then that way you can see, check and make sure that you're following the steps correctly. So the first step is we want to write out the equation, okay? So we're going to write out the equation in slope-intercept form. We know the slope is 7/5, so we're going to plug that in for our m. And our slope-intercept form would say y is equal to 7/5 x plus b. The next step that we're going to do is we're going to pick out an ordered pair from this graph, okay? So you can pick out this ordered pair or we can pick out this ordered pair. It does not matter which one, you will get the same exact answer with both. But I'm going to pick this one, okay? So then I want to get my ordered pair by looking at my x, and I go over 7 and then I go up 7. So my ordered pair would be written as 7 and then 7, okay? So I have my equation written out, I have my ordered pair picked out, and now I need to plug it in and solve. So step number 3, we're going to plug in the ordered pair into the equation, okay, into the equation that we've written. We're going to say that this is our x and this is our y. So we're going to go through the equation, and where we see y, we will plug in a 7. And then where we see x, we will also plug in a 7. So we get this equation down here of 7 equals 7/5 times 7 plus b. Okay. Step number 4 is going to be where we are going to solve. Okay, so we are going to take this, we're going to say 7 is equal to 7/5 times 7. And again, as a fraction, okay, don't be afraid of it as a fraction, just write it side by side. 7/5 times 7, and then we're going to place the 7/1. Okay, because it is a whole number. So 7 divided by 1 is 7. But just for the purposes of multiplying fractions, this looks a lot prettier to solve. So we're going to multiply across. 7 times 7 will give us 49. And then 5 times 1 will give us 5. Okay, that's where we get this 49/5 here. Now we have 7 is equal to 49/5 plus b. We want to get 49/5 away from b. And so what we are going to do is we're going to say that we're going to subtract because we have a positive 49/5. So we're going to do the inverse and we're going to subtract. And this is actually going to cancel out for us and just leave us with b. Now, when we subtract 7 minus 49/5, that's something that is going to be a little bit trickier to solve. If you choose to use a calculator, you can, but you can also do it by saying we'll say 7/1 minus 49/5. But remember, with fractions, you want to have common denominators when you're adding and subtracting, okay? So we would just multiply the denominator by 5 and multiply the numerator by 5, okay? We would get 5 times 7 is 35, 5 times 1 is 5, and then we're going to subtract 49/5. And we can see that 35, the difference, and we would actually say that our answer is going to be negative because when we change this integer rules, and we would say we would circle the bigger number, which is 49, Okay, and then we would subtract 49 minus 35 is going to give us that 14. 9 minus 5 is 4. 4 minus 3 is 1. And we would get the 14. But then we're going to go back, just like with integer rules, and we're going to say that the bigger number that we circled was a negative number. And that's how we got a negative 14 over 5. Okay. Even though we started with subtraction here, we did change it to addition and then add the opposite. That's how we got this 35 over 5 plus negative 49 over 5. And then when we solve it, we get negative 14 over 5. Okay, I know that was a lot of steps with this one, but we can just leave this as a fraction and leave it alone as is. Okay, when we go to plug in these numbers, we would say, let me clear all this out. We would say our slope is 7 over 5. Our y-intercept is negative 14 over 5. So then we would plug in all of these numbers to get a final answer of y is equal to 7 over 5x minus 14 over 5. And there is a button on iExcel that is going to let you write those fractions in there. Pay close attention. You can use that to make it look similar to what we have on the screen. And make sure you also put it in as y equals 7 over 5x minus 14 over 5.